Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for finding the right room on the internet for today's meeting. I think we're all here for the computer science department's presentation about the kind of overview of our undergraduate programs and some of the courses that you might be interested in taking. So thank you for joining us today, or if you kind of check up on the video later on, thanks for taking a look. My name is Ravi Chugh. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Studies for the Computer Science Department. And I've been a professor here in the department for about 11 years now. I'm joined by a few of my wonderful colleagues who also help kind of organize and run various aspects of our undergraduate program. So Jess, Adam, Borja, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Jess Garza. I'm the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Studies as well as the CS Minor Advisor. If you're going to pursue any kind of computer science classes, you'll probably see a lot of mail from Professor Chugh and I about waitlist type information, registration type things, anything like that. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
My turn. So my name is Adam Shaw. I'm a senior instructional professor in the computer science department. My title means that the bulk of my job is teaching, although I'm also the computer science major advisor. So those of you who are majors or may become majors at some point might have a meeting with me at some point to talk about your major plans. I also teach a lot of intro courses, so a lot of people, for better or for worse, will be my students in the early part of their time in the CS major. And I look forward to meeting you guys in person if we haven't met before.
Hey everyone, my name is Borja Sotomayor. I'm a senior instructional professor in the department. Some of you might already have gotten messages from me. I'm in charge of the placement exams, and I'll be talking a little bit about that today. I also teach CS 142, and I've been involved in the design of CS 141, 142, and I'll also be talking a little bit about that.
Okay, great. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We're happy to be here today to give you a little bit of information about our department. If you have questions that kind of come up as we go, please feel free to use the Q&A system in the webinar, and we'll try to get to them either during the presentation or at the end. And then, of course, at the end, we'll point you to lots of other resources and ways for you to find out more and get in touch with us in the future. So please. Ask all of your questions that you have today, and also follow up with us after the meeting. So our department has a number of academic programs. So at the undergraduate level, we have both a Bachelor of Science as well as a Bachelor of Arts in computer science, which we'll tell you more about today. We also offer a minor program, which we'll tell you about. Just for your reference, as you continue to study additional computer science courses. If in the future you might be interested in pursuing graduate programs, we've got a joint bachelor's and master's program, as well as a couple of master's programs and also a PhD program. We won't be talking about the graduate programs as much today, but just wanted to plant the seed that there's lots more that you might go on to learn about in the future. Today we're going to talk about the undergraduate programs in our department. And so I wanted to start with a little bit of a kind of a bird's eye view of our Bachelor of Science degree. And so the place to start looking at this diagram is kind of the bottom up. The number at the bottom to note is that our Bachelor of Science in Computer Science comprises 15 computer science courses. And so the kind of bottom level here describes 6 courses that are common to all students who pursue a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. We've got a 4-course introductory computer science sequence, CS 141 through 144, which we'll be telling you a lot more about soon. There's also 2 required theory courses, which are labeled Theory A and Theory B here. These are courses in discrete math and algorithms. And so this kind of bottom row, these 6 courses are common to all students who are pursuing a Bachelor of Science in our department. After those 6 courses, the kind of next level here are 1 course requirements in machine learning, 1 course requirement in more advanced systems, and 1 course requirement in a more advanced theory course. And so these are kind of the 9 requirements that you see at the bottom of this diagram. And on top of that, as you'll kind of see as you peruse the catalog, we have a variety of upper level courses in many different sub areas or subdisciplines in computer science. The remaining 6 courses that you would take can draw from any number of these additional sub areas, as long as 3 of those 6 electives are within one sub area. The idea is that in addition to getting introduced to a depth of knowledge in the foundations of computer science, you also kind of specialize and go a little bit deeper into one of the sub areas. And so, at a bird's eye view, we think the Bachelor of Science will prepare you for certainly careers in software development, graduate study in computer science if you're interested, as well as a range of other career options. We also offer a Bachelor of Arts degree in computer science. And so as you'll see here, the kind of bottom row of the diagram, these 6 courses on the bottom, a 4-course introductory CS and programming sequence, followed by, or in addition to a 2-course introductory to CS theory. Those 6 courses are common to the BS and the BA. What's different is that the remaining 8 courses, and so to make 14 courses total, the remaining 8 courses can really span a wide variety of different sub areas in computer science, with a requirement that those 8 electives span at least 5 different sub areas. And so, hopefully, as the picture kind of suggests, this particular degree offers an even wider range of pathways through the discipline. And so, in addition to careers in software development or more advanced kind of graduate study, which this degree certainly would prepare you for as well, we think this kind of even broader range of options could be useful to those of you exploring a wide variety of professional and personal kind of interests. So depending on what other courses you might be taking, one of these 2 degrees might be a good fit for you. We also offer a 7-course minor program, and so here the only requirement really is that you take 2 introductory programming courses, and then in addition to that, there's a wide variety of electives that you can choose from to put together your minor program. So hopefully many of you will be interested in taking some of these courses and may end up choosing to pursue one of these degree programs. So we're going to talk more specifically about the introductory sequence. And so Borja and Adam will tell you more about what's kind of like 2 halves to the introductory sequence. The first 2 courses, 141 and 142, are introductions to computational thinking and introductions to programming, software development, which will hopefully prepare you for a variety of classes, both within computer science and in other disciplines. And the second half of the introductory sequence continues to kind of deepen the fundamentals of computer science at a kind of lower level of abstraction. And so maybe Borja, you can take over from here.
Sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, I teach CS 142, but I was also involved in the design of, the CS 141, 142 classes, and we obviously work very closely between the 2 classes. So let me tell you a little bit about CS 141. This is our introductory, the first class in the intro sequence. It doesn't assume any prior knowledge of computer science, any prior knowledge of programming, and while it is taught in Python, it's not, I don't think you can think of it as just a Python programming class. Like, it really is meant to teach you how to think computationally, like how to take problems and solve them computationally, building basic computational skills like abstraction, decomposition, learning some basic algorithms and data structures. The class covers a variety of topics to sort of support that, like functions, like object-oriented programming and recursion. And again, this is sort of like our first introductory class, which then leads into CS 142, which so next slide, please. Which is really, CS 142 is really a direct continuation of CS 141. It is also taught in Python, and CS 142 is sort of divided into 2 sort of like portions. The first sort of half of the class just sort of like covers some advanced concepts in programming. Again, following up from CS 141. So in CS 142, we talk about trees, about graphs, about typing, about functional programming. And the second half of the class is more focused on learning some basic software development skills, with a focus on software design and testing. One important aspect and hopefully fun aspect of the class is that in that second half of the quarter, you actually get to develop a small game in teams of 4 students. And we try to mimic as much as possible the kind of interactions, the kind of requirements that you would have in a real software project. Both of these classes are also going to involve learning a number of supplementary skills, like getting familiarity with the the Linux terminal, with Linux systems, using Git, version control, and stuff like that. And like Ravi mentioned, these 2 classes, these first 2 classes are kind of form one part of the intro sequence, and the next part, which is more focused on systems, I will turn it over to Adam to describe.
So I am one of the people who frequently teaches CS 143, including just having taught it in the spring, and I will be teaching it next year as well. So a natural question that one might have entering CS 143 is, you just taught us how to write Python, and we're pretty good at writing Python. Why at this point would we learn a different language? And C is an old and somewhat gnarly and irregular programming language, but also a very, very good one and a very important one historically. And it's still used when programmers want to write code that has very good performance and has very predictable performance in terms of how much time and space is required. You really can't do much better than C. There are some competitors now, but historically at least, you really can't do better than C when what really matters is predictable, high performance. So you might be doing something like multiplying gigantic matrices against one another to simulate collision of galaxies, where there's just an almost incomprehensible amount of computation needs to be done. C is a great language for that because it does allow you to work so closely with the computer at the very low level with individual bits and really making sure you're getting just exactly what you want. So that's not to say that in CS 143 and in the successor course CS 144, you're actually going to become a master of programming like super high performance code, because that requires many years of experience, but we will start you on the pathway so that if you want to go in that direction, you can, but also you'll just have a much better idea of what the computer is actually doing when you give instructions to it. Python is pretty good at letting you do things at what we refer to as a very high level, kind of wave your hands and say, solve this problem, but you won't necessarily get into the details of exactly what's done in what order. But in C, you will. So we like for our students to learn C, and we think it's very helpful for them. And many students tell me, at least after this course, that C is their favorite language, even though it's an old, quirky language. It's not new and flashy like Python is, but it has a lot of fans. Just to go down the bullet points on this slide, in C, we'll learn how computers work in detail, greater detail than we learned in the prior 2 courses. Learn about bits and bytes and memory, like how the computer actually stores information and how it manages it inside. The way numbers, strings, and data structures are represented. Pointers and indirection, which is an important topic with respect to like where we keep things and whether we just like point to them or whether we copy them and move copies around. Memory allocation and memory management, that's very important because the computer only has a finite amount of memory and you need to use what you have responsibly and conscientiously. And we also get into parallel programming with p-threads. That's many computers now, I'd say probably most computers, I don't know for a fact, have multiple cores inside them that can perform tasks at the same time as one another. So parallel programming is the craft of actually firing up many cores and having things happen in parallel, which can make your code run much faster. So that's just some of the topics we learned in CS 143. Also, along with 142 and 141 is we're just learning a lot of the greatest hits of computer programming, sorting algorithms, trees, and graphs, and just getting more acculturated into being a computer scientist. Can I have the next slide, please? So CS 144 is an even lower level than 143 course. 143 is, you're still doing programming, but in 144, you're even getting sort of underneath the level of C programming and learning things like assembly language, learning just how the memory is, the memory hierarchy is organized in the computer, which again is extremely helpful if you want to write code that runs really, really fast, system calls, processes, and concurrency. There's an overlap between 143 and 144, but 144 has a greater level of detail. I have never taught this course, but I will be teaching it in the autumn. So maybe if you talk to me in December, I will know much more about 144 than I know right now. But taken together, these courses are important preparation for anyone interested in a career in computer science. And our minors don't need to take 143 and 144, but it's often important to take one or both of them because they are prerequisites for so many classes at the 200 level. So I will probably be seeing a good fraction of you in 143 and 144 sometime over the next few years. I will now turn it over to Borja.
Great, thank you. Like I mentioned earlier, one of my roles in the department is that I am in charge of the computer science placement exams. And again, I think I recognize a number of names from people who have already taken the placement exam, and you've probably heard from me and gotten messages from me. And if you haven't taken the placement exams yet, don't worry, as I'll mention in a second, there is still a chance to take the computer science placement exams. But basically, to determine, we've just talked about the intro sequence and the 4 classes it comprises. To sort of determine what class you should start in, the Department of Computer Science and the college offer 3 placement exams that are taken in sequence, and I'll explain that sequence of exams in a second, to sort of figure out where you should start if you have prior programming experience. This is not an exam that every incoming student in the college has to take. It's just an exam that you can opt to take, you can choose to take if you have prior programming experience and you feel like you want to start, later in the intro sequence. These are online exams, but they do involve writing actual working code that has to solve certain problems that we give you. So next slide, please. So if you are joining the university as an incoming student, again, you sort of like have your first choice when it comes to the placement exams is, should I go into CS 141, which we've just talked about, or should I take the CS1 exam? So next slide. If you don't have any previous computer science experience, any previous programming experience, you really should be going into CS 141. The CS1 exam is not meant to be an exam that you should sort of like self-study for and like learn programming yourself for. It really is meant to capture students who either in high school or in some other way have already learned programming and might have the right skill set to place out of CS 141 and move on, starting a further class in the sequence. So let's say that you do take the CS1 exam. So next slide. Then there's sort of like 3 possible outcomes. I mean, the exam itself, you will either pass it or you won't pass it. If you don't pass it, that means that you're starting in CS 141. But when you pass it, you sort of like have 2 options in front of you. You can either take CS 142 or you could take a further exam, the CS2 exam, which can allow you to place further into the sequence. So especially for those of you who are joining us who have taken the CS1 exam already and have passed the exam, I did want to talk a little bit about this sort of like inflection point after you pass the CS1 exam. So next slide, please. Because a lot of you, after you pass that, if you do take the exam and you pass that first exam, you might just by default say, oh, well, I'm going to go and take the next exam, or I'm going to, go and take CS 142. And you really do want to think a little bit about what the right choice is going to be here. If you have passed the CS1 exam and you've been added to the CS2 exam Canvas site, we do have a page there that describes, these choices sort of like in detail. But in a nutshell, the main thing that we want to make sure that everyone knows is that if you do place into CS 142, there's probably going to be a fair amount of self-study that you're going to have to do on your own before starting the class. And this sometimes catches students by surprise if they haven't sort of read up on the materials beforehand. Because in CS 142, we are assuming that you know not just the content that we cover in CS 141, but you're already familiar with all these other supplementary skills that we cover in the class, that you're comfortable in a Linux terminal, that you're comfortable using, Git, and so on and so forth. So the CS2 exam Canvas site, besides explaining these choices, does have a detailed list of links to resources that sort of say, okay, if you don't already know how to use Linux, go read this tutorial. If you don't already know how to use Git, go read this tutorial. Make sure that you can log into the computer science Linux servers and so on and so forth. And I think one of the things that you want to ask yourself is, as you look through that list of things that we ask you to do to prepare for CS 142, if that feels too daunting, that might be a sign that you might be better served by just going into CS 141 to make sure that you build those skills in a more sort of structured, controlled, environment. Now, let's say that you're comfortable with all of that, that you sort of feel like, I could go into CS 142 easily. But should you take the CS2 exam or not? So I think the main thing you want to bear in mind is that CS 142, sure, like it covers more advanced topics that maybe you have seen already, like more advanced tree data structures like graphs and so on. But it does spend, again, a lot of time talking about software development. So if you haven't had exposure to software design, to software testing, to working in teams, and so on and so forth, even if you do know some of the subject matter in CS 142, like graphs, like functional programming, like typing, etc., you might still get a lot out of CS 142 because you will get sort of that experience of working in a team, learning about software design, software testing, and so on. If, on the other hand, you feel like, you know what, I already got some experience with that, with design, with testing, I've worked in teams, and so on and so forth, then that maybe means, okay, so maybe you're a good candidate for taking the CS2 exam to then sort of skip further into the sequence. So next slide, please. So if you pass the CS2 exam, then if you don't pass it, that just means that you will start it in CS 142. If you do pass it, that means that you again, you can choose between taking the CS3 exam or the CS, or you can take CS 143. And finally, next slide. If you take that final exam, if you don't pass it, you start in CS 143. If you do pass it, you start in CS 144. So next slide, please. A few more details about these exams. The CS1 and CS2 exams can be taken in Python, Java, or C++, and they cover roughly a lot of the same material that we cover in CS 141, CS 142. One thing I forgot to mention previously is that if you were someone who took the exam in Java or C++, but not Python, bear in mind that CS 141 and CS 142 are both going to be taught in Python. So if you pass that first exam, but you took the exam in Java or C++, another thing you might want to ask yourself is, do I really want to learn all of this Python by myself, before going into CS 142? Or is it just going to be better for me to go into CS 141 and, again, make sure that you learn about Python in a more structured, controlled environment? Because now for the CS3 exam, because that determines whether you can skip CS 143 and go into CS 144. And as Adam mentioned earlier, both of these classes are taught in C. The CS3 exam can only be taken in C, and it's actually structured around developing a small programming project. It really is intended only for students who already are very comfortable with the C programming language. So if you already have a lot of experience with C, then that's when you might want to think about taking the CS3 exam. Each exam has a Canvas site that is going to have additional details for the if you're an incoming student, all of the incoming students are just added automatically to the Canvas site for the CS1 exam. We've already had 2 sittings of that exam, but we do have one final sitting on September 8th and 9th. So if you weren't able to take the exam at any of the first 2 sittings, like there is still one more chance to take the exam on September 8th or 9th. For the CS2 and CS3 exams, those are by invitation only. So those are really only if you pass the preceding exam, you get invited to the Canvas site. One thing I do want to mention about our placement exams is that I know that in for some other placement exams, you get your initial results. I mean, like in other departments, you get your initial results, and then you can sometimes talk with someone at the department or one of the instructors and sort of like adjust your placement based on they'll look at your transcript or past experience, etc. In computer science, the placement exam is it. Like that is, we go only by the results of the placement exam. So whatever result you get on the placement exam, that is final. You can't come to me, you can't come to anyone else in the department and sort of like ask like, hey, I have this coding portfolio or I have some coursework I did somewhere else. Can you accept that instead of the placement exam? We do our placements into the intro sequence based exclusively on this on our placement exam. And finally, next slide. I just wanted to just talk a little bit about back credit in the CS placement exam, because it is a question that comes up often with the placement exams. When, as we've just sort of described, when you take these placement exams, you're placing out of classes in the intro sequence. But that doesn't mean that you automatically get credit for those classes and that you can start registering for other classes in the department that have one of these intro classes as a prerequisite. So for example, let's say that you're someone who has already taken the CS1 exam, you've passed that exam, you've sort of decided, you know what, I'm going to go into CS 142. And there's maybe like, I think there's a very small number of classes in the department that just have CS 141 as a prerequisite. You are not able to register for those classes yet. You need to first earn what is known as back credit. Now, if you want to take a class that has CS 141 as a prerequisite, you first have to take CS 142. And then you will earn back credit for CS 141. So that means that in all the registration systems, when you try to register for a class that has CS 141 as a prerequisite, it'll sort of allow you to do that to pre-register. If you are placed into CS 143 or CS 144, you don't get credit for 141 or 142 until you've completed either CS 143 or 144, depending on your placement. And one thing to note is that we don't award back credit for CS 143. Okay, so that is it from me regarding the placement exams. If anyone does have any questions about the placement exams, feel free to ask on the webinar Q&A system. But other than that, I will turn it back to Ravi.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Borja. So now that we've talked a little bit about the structure and the content and the placement process for the introductory sequence, next let's talk a little bit about what this first year might look like for you if you're interested in taking one of these courses. And so one thing to note is that not every one of the 4 introductory courses is taught every quarter. Instead, we offer each of the 4 courses 2 out of the 3 quarters per year. So for example, 141 is being offered both in the fall quarter and the winter quarter. There's multiple sections in each of those 2 quarters. The second course, 142, is offered in the winter quarter and the spring quarter, and so on and so forth. And so, for example, just one thing to note, so we are offering multiple sections of all of these courses. We intend to have about 500 students in 141 and 500 students in 142. And then 143 and 144 are naturally a bit smaller. The first 2 courses in the sequence are taken by students from across the college, a wide number of majors. Students who are likely to pursue a major in computer science are more likely to then continue in the sequence. And so let's say you sign up and are registered for 141 in the fall. Naturally, you would, you might be likely to take 142 in the winter. Then if you're continuing in the sequence, you might be likely to take 143 in the spring. And then similarly, if you end up kind of starting 140 in the winter, then again, naturally, you could plan to take 142 in the spring, 143 in the following fall, and so on and so forth. And so kind of as these little diagrams show, we basically kick off the introductory sequence twice per year. And so, if you are starting out in 141, then, hopefully there will be, opportunity in your schedule and in the registration process for you to sign up in the fall. If not, no need to worry too much. There's going to be multiple offerings in the winter as well. But one thing to note about this little picture here is that if you pass the CS1 exam, and as Borja kind of mentioned, you're feeling comfortable in kind of brushing up on the other kind of skills that are needed before starting in 142, 142 is not offered in the fall. And so your first chance to take 142 will be in the winter. And so, this kind of point about, not being able to take 142 right away, let's say, I think is part of a general kind of, recommendation that even if, at some point, both for our degree requirements as well as, your general elective requirements or other kind of coursework requirements, it's good to, think about ways to make progress on, one or more of your overall requirements, even if you're not able to take exactly the single course that you want to take every quarter. In general, it's good to think about what other parts of your requirements you could make progress on. And so if you're in this, scenario where you're planning on taking 142, it's not being offered in the fall, well, think about the many other kind of classes that, would be, great time for you to make progress on your overall requirements, and then start off with your introductory programming experience in the winter. So beyond the kind of introductory sequence, which we've talked, most about today, I just wanted to mention a couple of other kind of common starting points in our curriculum. And so a few minutes ago, we talked about the introductory theory courses that are required of all CS majors. So 271 and 272 are our discrete mathematics and our algorithms courses. Like our introductory programming courses, these courses are also not offered every single quarter. We offer multiple sections of 271 in the fall and the winter, and multiple sections of 272 in the winter and spring. And another kind of common, starting point for advanced study is the starting course in our machine learning sequence, a course called Mathematical Foundations of Machine Learning, 253. Again, it's not offered every single quarter. We typically offer multiple sections in the fall and multiple sections in the spring. And so, if you happen to be starting out with the introductory programming sequence this coming year, then these theory and machine learning courses are courses that maybe you'll have on your radar for the following year, once you start to take the introductory CS requirements that are prerequisite to some of these courses. One more note that I wanted to mention about these theory courses is that starting this year, we are, in addition to the kind of programming placement exam process, which Borja has told us about, we're also offering an optional placement exam for discrete mathematics. So if you are a student who has had prior exposure to proofs, to logic, to number theory, some of the other kinds of topics that go into our discrete mathematics course for a broad variety of subsequent courses in computer science. If you've studied those courses, before starting at U of C, or maybe you're this year you're taking some math courses in which you are exposed to these topics, you might consider taking this optional placement exam, which will be offered probably in October this year. We'll have more specific information in the coming weeks and months. If you end up choosing to take and pass this placement exam, the idea is then you could start the theory sequence in algorithms instead, and replace discrete math with a more advanced course. And so, if you feel like you might, benefit from, starting later in the sequence, feel free to submit your information at this link below. Once we have more information about the dates, we'll, follow up with those of you that might be interested in this optional exam. Okay, in addition to the introductory programming courses, the introductory theory and machine learning courses, one thing to note, which I believe Adam mentioned earlier, is and came up earlier, is that even though this is an introductory sequence and the dependencies between these courses are strict dependencies, it's not the case that every single 200 level upper level course requires 144. There are several courses that only require 142, let's say, or only require 143. And so as you are, browsing the course offerings for this year, thinking about when you might, start the sequence and what other topics you might be interested in, realize that there are some electives, upper level electives, that, might be available to you even before you finish the entire sequence. And so, feel free to, pick some of those courses that might be, a good fit for your schedule and your interests. Another important thing to note about the pre-registration system is that for computer science, the pre-registration system will enroll you in at most 2 CS courses in any given quarter. So you will not be surprised to know that computer science is a popular major. We have lots of courses that many students are interested in bidding on and taking. And so to help the process allow as many students as possible to do make progress towards their computer science interests and their coursework requirements, the system will at most register you into two courses. Once add drop opens in the beginning of the quarter, once students have had kind of a fair shot to get into multiple courses, for seats that kind of may be remaining in different courses, then some students are able to get a third course, let's say, but you won't be able to automatically get registered into more than at most two courses through the pre-registration process. On a related note, many of our courses will have more students bid for enrollment than we have seats available. And so for courses in this scenario, we run a department run waitlist process for courses that are kind of full or almost full through pre-registration. As some seats may open up in the first week or two as students are shuffling around their schedules, making adjustments. If there are seats that open up in one of these courses, we use this department waitlist to try to prioritize how to allocate those remaining seats to the students that might benefit most from getting into those courses. Maybe a student that for whatever reason wasn't able to get into any of their CS courses that they bid on, or maybe based on upcoming kind of constraints, maybe could really benefit from taking a specific course this quarter, whereas others might already have two courses on their schedule. We use this waitlist process to try to make the most of any seats that come up. And so later in the summer and before every quarter, we will be in touch with you about what courses to direct your attention to the wait list. If there is other courses that you didn't get into through pre-reg that you would like to, possibly get a seat in if space opens up. And then one more thing that I've said already, and I think it's important, is to realize that if your course plan depends on getting exactly these three courses next year and exactly these three courses in spring of 2028 in order to satisfy your grant plans, you should maybe think a little bit more about how to more flexibly plan your courses. Their course schedule varies every year. We've got a lot of courses that will have more demand than there are seats in any given quarter, and so your course planning needs to be flexible. We have a variety of courses, and so even if you're not able to get your top favorite course in the specific quarter you want, we encourage you to really think about what other courses could you take that'll allow you to continue making progress towards your degree requirements, even if it's not your absolute top favorite choice. There's lots of great courses, lots of great subjects to take. So be flexible as you're planning, not just your computer science coursework, but other coursework as well. Okay, with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jessica with some kind of more tips and tips about advising in general.
So in your next few years at the university, you're probably going to have a multitude of questions. Ravi just kind of went over a few things with registration. Registration in particular can be kind of a confusing time. So we want to make sure that you have a good starting point as to where to direct those questions. As a general rule of thumb, if it's not CS related, if it's not those 14 or 15 for your major or 7 for your minor related to those courses, you should start with your college advisor. We'll assist you if we can, but there's a lot of things that your college advisor is just going to be the best person to start with. If you're looking for someone to kind of go over your actual major plan, you're thinking about how does the coursework line up with your career, things like that, something a little more personalized, you should really start with our major advisor, Adam Shaw. He's always happy to meet with students in person or however that works. And then for minor advising, you can come to me. There's an approval form you'll need. Really simple. If you have any questions, you can email me about that and we can go over that. If you have any logistical questions, I'm also a pretty good person to start with. Any kind of registration or some kind of exceptions you might need, feel free to reach out to me for any general thing like that with its CS related. Next slide. And then here's just a few different resources. We highly encourage, if you're planning on taking CS classes, even if it's just some of the intro classes or you're going to consider sticking with it, we really encourage you to subscribe to the undergrad mailing list. You can always unsubscribe. It's really easy, but this will make sure that you're not missing any, pertinent information that we send out. The next one, course info, is a departmentally managed course scheduling site. You can see a rough draft of the upcoming academic year, and then that's going to have the most up-to-date quarterly information as well, as far as days and times, or if, a schedule might change. The college catalog has obviously a ton of information. If you have more questions after the college catalog, feel free to reach out to, one of the advisors. My planner, once you can kind of fiddle around with an unofficial plan. Once you declare your major, that's going to be really helpful for trying to figure out what your next 4 years look like. Like Professor Chugh was saying, scheduling, don't get locked into, I have to take these specific classes, but it is a really good tool to try and figure out what the next couple of years might look like for you, or what they could look like. The CS Student Resource Guide is going to be really helpful for you as you're going through the major or minor. And then the FAQ, you're going to have obviously some frequently asked questions that might be a good starting point if you're thinking about reaching out to somebody and you want to see if maybe that's already been addressed.
This slide is for me, some frequently asked questions based on what people ask me as the major advisor and what they ask the different panelists. Where can I see which courses are offered when? Well, look at courseinfo.cs.uchicago.edu. That is a website that I designed and mostly built with some help from others. And it, as Jess just said, it contains CS course information, and often we publish information there that we're in the process of communicating with the registrar. So course info tends to be more up to date than the registrar's materials. It also offers a glimpse of future quarters like spring and winter and spring, which you, as far as I know, you can't see anywhere else. So keep your eyes on courseinfo.cs. It will help you plan. What computer should I buy? This is a question I get every so often. I guess I haven't had it this summer yet, but there's still time. People want to know if they should buy a Mac, Windows, or Linux computer. Of course, we're delighted if you buy Linux computers. Very few people do that, but those are very highly compatible with our studies, but so are Mac and Windows. So whatever computer you have, there will be a way for you to make it work with our program. I should also mention we have a lot of computers on campus they can use, even if you don't have your own computer. It seems that almost everyone arrives with their own laptop, but if you didn't have one, we do have computers available most of the working day and beyond. Actually, every weekday, what am I saying? Every day, Sunday through Saturday. We have a lot of very, very good computers ready to go that you can use for your work as well. If you are a Windows user, we will ask you to install something called WSL, which is a free download and install for Windows, and it will let you use your Windows computer to some extent as if it's a Linux computer, which means you will be able to follow the same instructions that we're giving to people who are using Linux computers or using Macintosh, which are already a lot like Linux computers. So if you are a Windows user, you put WSL on your computer, then you will be on equal footing with everyone else. How many courses should you take per quarter? Well, really the thing I want to emphasize here as the major advisor and from a bitter experience, please don't plan to take 3 courses in any particular quarter. Don't think, oh, I'll just go to Amsterdam and then I'll come back and I'll take 5 computer science courses, I'll be done. The reason not to make that plan, besides the fact that you shouldn't overload yourself with challenging CS courses, which is in itself not a good thing to do. The more important point, and this was already in the presentation previously, is you cannot get into more than 2 courses through the registrar's system. So even if you want or need to take 3, 4, or 5 courses, you're only going to get into 2. And then you will have to sort of make special cases and ask, for exceptions in order to take any more than 2 quarters. Now, does that happen? Yes, it does happen. We will have people who take 3 courses in a particular quarter if they need to. It is often maybe their 3rd course is a course that was a less popular course that didn't fill up in the first place, and maybe you can grab a seat and make that your 3rd course. But planning to do any more than 3 is a total non-starter, and even planning to do 3 is not a good plan. You should plan to do no more than 2 courses per quarter. When should you start taking theory courses? You should start them no later than the third year. Actually, if you can sneak it in at some point in the second year, that's good too. And I hope you have more questions that aren't on this list, and maybe you will ask them in a minute.
Okay, so I think that's all of our regularly scheduled programming. If someone who can read the Q&A, so I don't mess up and accidentally cancel the meeting by pressing the wrong button.
I can read them. We have an anonymous question. Does the 2 CS course limit apply to courses that apply to the CS major minor or anything under the CMSC tag? So the answer is anything under the CMSC tag. It's just as simple as that. Next question from Sasha. I saw that 142 is not offered in the autumn. If I place out a 142 and want to take 142 rather than, sorry, if I place out of 141 and want to take 142 rather than 143, what can I do in terms of CS courses in the autumn quarter? Borja, do you want to take a stab at that since you're the placement test person?
I think Ravi addressed this in his portion, because I don't think that there is anything that students would be eligible to take in the autumn. Is that right, Ravi?
Yeah, I think, and Jessica or Adam, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only CS coded course that has only 141 as a prereq is CS 253 Math Foundations for ML. But as Borja mentioned earlier, you will not have CS 141 credit simply by taking or passing the CS1 exam. That will only get conferred once you complete 142. And so that's right. So you won't be able to take a CS coded course in your first quarter. And so I think that the best advice is to think about all the other general elective and other requirements that you intend to satisfy and make a little bit more progress on that in the fall, and then pick up with your introductory CS sequence in the winter.
And I might reiterate something. Maybe it was Borja who said this, or forgive me if I get the credit wrong, but Ravi I think said it. If you end up with a quarter where you can't do any CS, particularly maybe the first quarter of your first year, please pay attention to the other things you have to do, like art classes or language classes, math, statistics, anything else that you either need to or would like to be part of your degree. It's a great time to take the time to do that.
Find the laundry machines, get a good routine for that as well. There's lots to do. There'll be no shortage of professional.
Let's not give them the wrong. It does not take a full course's worth of effort to find the laundry machines at the UChicago, just in case anyone is frightened by that remark. Borja is going to take the next question.
Yeah, and this has come up already in the context of the placement exams, because going back to what I said earlier, that if you place into CS 142, we are going to expect you to already know how to use Linux, how to use Git, and we provide in the CS2 exam site all of these resources, like, hey, here's a Linux tutorial, here's a Git tutorial, and there's also a lot of you can access like the CS Linux servers to sort of run through the Linux tutorial and the Git tutorial and just familiarize yourself with our software environment. Question that we get is, do first years have access to the Linux server yet? So yes and no. Basically, as a first year, once you're here on campus, the moment that you register for your first CS class, you will automatically be given access to the CS Linux server. So if you go to the Linux tutorial that we point to in the CS2 exam site, you'll be able to log in and so on and so forth. If you want to access if you're someone who is placed into CS 142, you want to get a head start over the summer, which I think is great. Like if you want to start working through that tutorial, making sure you can log into the Linux servers and so on. You do need to request what's called a CS account. This is not actually like a completely separate account. It's really more like giving your CNIT ID permission to access a number of CS resources, most notably the Linux servers. So I'm just going to post on the chat. Hopefully that'll actually go to everyone on the webinar. So there is a a form you can fill out to sort of like ask our tech staff to give you a CS account. Just make sure that on the form you just sort of specify, hey, I'm an incoming student. As long as you have a senior ID, it'll be fine. And once that CS account is created, you'll be able to access the other Linux servers. Now, you only have to do this extra step if you want to access them over the summer. Like I said earlier, like once you're here on campus, the moment that you register for a CMSC class, you'll automatically get access to those resources.
We also received a question about the discrete math placement exam. If you need to write to express your interest or if everyone will have the option. In the slides that I think will be going out, there's a link to express your interest. Because we don't have an actual date set yet, it's just a general interest form. It doesn't lock you into taking it. You don't have to express it. We'll send more information out once we have that available. To a few, various channels that we typically go through, like the CS undergrad mailing list, like we mentioned earlier. However, if you do express your interest there, that's a way of guaranteeing you're going to get that information sent directly to you, so it doesn't, slip past the radar. So if you would like to, that would be a good option.
More questions, please.
Well, maybe we're waiting for more questions. Oh, is there another question, Carrie?
Yeah, there was one question. I wrote out the answer, but just to talk it through out loud as well. Students were asking about how courses can double count within the college. So I'll just share that courses can double count between two majors, but not a major and a minor, not the core and a major, and not the core and a minor. However, some of you will see that you can use computer science courses, some of the lower level courses, towards the core. So I don't know if maybe one of you want to speak to that. So if someone were to use 141 and 142 towards the core, what does that mean if they want to pursue a major or a minor? Can they do that?
So let's see, if they use 141 towards the math sci core requirement. Well, so that's a good question. Maybe I can go back to this diagram a little while ago, and Jess, please correct me if I misspeak. But the diagram that we showed earlier, so for example, the BA requires 14 CS courses, the BS requires 15 CS courses. Here, the requirements that we've described are for CS courses in particular. In addition, as you will kind of, you can read more detail in the college catalog, we also do have some requirements on your general elective requirements. So for example, both BS and BA students to earn a BS or a BA in computer science must take which calculus courses are they? Do you remember, Jessica or Adam? Off the top of my head, I don't remember. But there is a requirement to complete the math sci core requirement through calculus. So for example, if you were planning to satisfy the math sci core requirement with CS 141, that wouldn't satisfy the general elective requirements in our major, because for our major, the math sci core has to be satisfied with calculus. Furthermore, for the physical sciences core requirement, if you're pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, we require that the physical sciences core requirement is satisfied by a 2-course sequence of courses for students majoring in science. So the college, in particular the Physical Sciences Collegiate Division, has a catalog page that describes how, if you are pursuing a science major, here is the subset of courses that count towards the Phi-Sci requirement. And so, for example, again, if you're pursuing a BS in computer science, you wouldn't be able to take any courses that satisfy the Phi-Sci requirement, specifically a 2-course sequence from that list. And so those are some of the kinds of interactions between how you might be satisfying the core requirements and how they have implications for our major. And those details are also in the catalog. So please have a look through, and then get in touch with your college advisor and us as you have more and more questions.
Ravi, can I pull that up in the catalog for a second?
Oh, sure. Should I open that on my screen or?
I have it if you can let me share.
Oh, I think you have permission to take over from me. I'm just the hired help here. Do I have to hit stop share maybe?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, can you all see the catalog? Under the core for math, you'll see computer science courses here as being able to fill the core under non-calculus courses. But to Ravi's point, the calculus courses also complete the core. So essentially what you're seeing is on the computer science page, the summary of requirements will include information about specific gen ed requirements in math. And so that's where you'll see a 2-quarter calculus sequence will count towards the BA, and further down you'll see that for the BS as well. So that's why even though you see computer science under that core requirement, you're going to fulfill it through a different means. There's a couple more questions here. Is there a recommended order to complete the theory, systems, and specialization courses?
I mean, Adam, maybe you have kind of, more wisdom given your experience advising students, but, I think, different students will have different, interests, different opportunities. So I'm not sure that there is necessarily a single order to, take theory first versus systems first. Adam?
And I think this is a question without a one-size-fits-all answer. It depends on who the student is. I would caution any student generally against planning to cram things into the last quarter or even the last 2 quarters of your time with us, because if heaven forbid you ended up having to take 2 theory courses in the spring quarter of your 4th year, that would be a logistical and academic problem. So I would just tell anyone to try to start those things early, all 3 of those groups, and try to get them done before your very last quarter, if at all possible. But it's so individual. Like, some people find our theory courses very hard. Some people find them easy. So it's very hard for me to answer that question in any sort of general way. But don't backload those requirements.
There's a question about our graduate programs, which I can answer very briefly because, as Ravi said at the beginning of this presentation, like, the focus here really is on our undergraduate program. But yes, we do have a bachelor's master's program that allows you to get both a bachelor's and a master's in 4 years or 4 years and a quarter. We have a professionally oriented master's program that is part of the Advanced Scholars program, the 4+1 program. The main thing I will say is that if you're interested in doing the bachelor's master's program, you don't apply until you're a 3rd year. It's generally pretty, like, if you're an incoming student, it is way too early to think about, doing the bachelor's master's and stuff like that. You can certainly have a conversation with your college advisor about, there are certain credit requirements that you have to sort of fulfill to be able to be eligible for the bachelor's master's program. And you can start thinking about, am I going to meet that credit requirement? But we don't really meet with students this early about the bachelor's master's program. You apply in your 3rd year. We run a yearly info session that I encourage you to attend to learn more about the bachelor's master's program. And if you do want to do, and if the bachelor's master's program is not feasible on your end, you want to do the 4+1 program instead, you apply as either a 3rd year or a 4th year. Our 4+1 program does not accept applications from 2nd year. So again, as a 1st year, it's going to be really way too early to think about applying and requirements and stuff like that. I would encourage you to maybe start thinking about this when you're in your 2nd year, gearing up to applying in your 3rd year. And we definitely have a lot of resources available online. once I'm done answering this question, I'll just like post a link to some slides that we have on the bachelor's master's program. And you can certainly reach out to us if you have any questions. To either Jess or I. Jess or I are sort of like the co-advisors for the bachelor's master's program. You can certainly reach out to us if you have any questions.
I wonder if, Carrie, we have an anonymous question. Is there an interactive spreadsheet online to think through a four-year curriculum? I wonder if maybe maybe this would be an opportunity to plug the My Planner system.
Absolutely, yeah. You might have gotten like a brief preview of that during one of the earlier webinars from academic advising, but My Planner is a feature that you can access through your My UChicago portal. When you log in, you're going to see it on the right-hand side. That's going to take you to My Planner, which does a few different things. It's a degree auditing tool, so it's actually like a checklist that's interactive. And lets you know, how many requirements you've met, what you have left, how close you are to graduating, which is, I know, super important. So, but there is a separate tab there that has a planning feature where you can click and drag your various requirements and spread them across your time here. So if you're a brand new first year student and you're going to be here for 4 years, you can spread it all out. If you're a transfer student, and you're trying to work it out to be efficient and graduate it as quickly as you can, same thing. You can spread it across a shorter period of time.
We also have a question. Can you walk us through what each specialization entails? I don't think we can walk you through, but Ravi read my mind here. I was going to post a link to the CS major specializations page, which has a list of the courses you need to take for each specialization. So I'll go ahead and put the link. You're seeing it in this shared screen right now, but I will post a link and you can look there for more information.
Right. And then in addition, we are kind of working on a web page to talk a little bit more about these kinds of sets of courses and lists of courses with some of the kind of goals for each of these specializations. And so keep an eye out on course info in the catalog. In the coming months, we should have more information about the different kinds of specializations that we offer. Okay, are there any more outstanding questions at the moment? Okay, so if not, so I think Carrie, is it the case that this presentation will be shared with students both who were able to attend and otherwise, and hopefully you've learned a little bit that will help you as you kind of are deciding and coming up with your course plan for the year. Please do look through the resources that we have available and follow up with your college advisor and any one of us with additional questions that you have. And we look forward to seeing you in person in the coming months and years.
Right. And I'm just throwing the link in the chat for where people can access the recording if they need to refer back to anything. Right.
Okay, it's time to roll the credits. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good rest of your day.